Okay, so today when we're talking about mixing, we're going to be talking about mainly plugins. If you remember our signal chain before, we had these MIDI notes and we could throw an arpeggiator on there and we put a software instrument on it, and now we're dealing with audio. If you have a loop on your track, if you have an audio loop, you don't have any MIDI or arpeggiator or a software instrument. You're just starting with audio right here. Okay. What is a plugin? It is something that applies DSP or signal processing from the CPU, from the central processing unit of the computer. That processing gets applied onto your audio path and changes the way it sounds, does something to it. Okay? Before it gets panned and then sent to the fader. Let's see if I can. I thought there was a way I got rid of theirs. There we go. Okay. Before it gets sent to the output of the mix. Does that make sense? So we're up here right now, and it's sort of the last thing you can do to the signal before you start panning it or fading it. Turning it up and down. There's categories of plugins or effects, and the first one is equalizer, which we call EQ. EQ increases or decreases the amplitude for specific frequencies. Okay? High frequencies, mid frequencies, low frequencies. There are three types of equalizers. There's a filter, which we've been using quite a bit. There is a shelf, and there is a parametric. There used to be an old band pass thing, but we won't worry about that. So we have a filter, shelving, parametric, and I want to show you those three right now. So let's go over to our tracks, and we will. We have right now a lead guitar track, or you have some sort of lead track on there, and we're just going to come over on the left. Make sure you click on lead here. Don't have drummer selected. Click on that, and we're going to go put in a channel EQ. You can just double click where it says EQ there, and you watch what happens. It puts that channel EQ right in there for you. Okay. And we're going to hit play, and we will see the analyzer happen here. Turn that down a little bit. The analyzer is showing us the frequencies, the amplitude of the frequencies for that sound. Make sense? Okay, the three types of EQ. So this is called an EQ plugin, but it actually has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 equalizers in it. Back in the day, you would have to pay $500 for one or two of those each for one channel. This is just ridiculous now what we have access to. Okay? We have looked at this filter right here. Filter. What does a filter do? A filter cuts off all the frequencies above the filter point and increasingly cuts it off as it goes higher and higher and higher. In fact, this one, every octave, every time the frequency doubles or gets twice as high, it cuts it by another 24 decibels. It's cutting it off very fast, and it keeps cutting as it goes. That's a filter. You cannot boost with a filter. See that? I can't turn it up. If I drag this up here, oops, sorry. It looks like I turned it up. I can't turn it up there. The only thing I can do is increase the resonance at the cutoff point, which is this little guy down here at the bottom. If I increase that resonance, the filter basically overshoots a little bit and causes a little boost in the signal right at the cutoff point, right at the cutoff frequency. Okay? We use that a lot. We've used that in our synthesizers, right, to make kind of a wet sound. It has a wetter sound. If I make it more resonant, it's less resonant. I don't hear it as much. I don't hear that cutoff point. You'll see as it gets resonant, it gets a little steeper right at that cutoff point. You see that? The whole thing gets steeper as I raise it up. A little steeper right here. That's a filter. There's a high cut filter and a low cut filter. A low cut filter is also called a high pass filter. Does that make sense to everybody? Okay. Filters are your friends. Use them lots. You'll never get me telling you not to use a filter. Love them. Shelf EQ, the next one over here. This is your basic equalizer that does a lot of different frequencies. What it does is everything above a certain frequency, it either raises or lowers it. You can go up or down on this one. Boost or cut. Okay? But instead of it continuing to cut or boost more and more and more and more and more and more, it boosts all these frequencies the same amount. Right now it's boosting them by 8 decibels. Right here at the bottom. If I lower that 8 decibels to negative 7 decibels, now it's cut them all at negative 7. If I reduce the frequency down, they all stay the same amount down. It's just like turning the volume down on those high frequencies. Whereas the cut rolls off consistently, the shelf just cuts it off the same amount. When you see bass or treble on your stereo, that's what it's doing. It's a shelf EQ. Don't ever use shelf EQ. I'm being a little facetious on that, but I don't think you should ever use it. Being kind of not facetious too. Why? It introduces a lot of phase cancellation in your song. It's going to make, even if you've rolled off this high frequency down here, these frequencies are being affected by it in a way that I think makes it sound worse. You're fundamentally changing the quality of the sound to such a, if you're especially using a lot of it, to such a degree that maybe it wasn't the right sound in the first place. One of the rules of thumb that I like to use is I like to not be, if I'm trying to fix something a little bit, I like to not do much more than about 3 decibels of gain or reduction. And you'll find that that may not make much of a difference with this shelf EQ. Okay, so be careful when you're using shelf EQ. There's a high and a low shelf right here. Here's the low shelf, up, down, up, down. I can low shelf everything below 5K, right? The last type of equalizer are these ones in the middle. And these are called parametric or bell curve equalizers. And they work kind of like they look. If I grab it and I raise it up, it boosts all the frequencies around a center point, around a frequency point. I can bring it down. I can change that frequency up and down. I can change the amplitude higher and lower. Below that I see this is called the Q, which is basically how wide or steep the equalizer is. So if I increase this Q, you'll see that it gets narrower like that, more focused. More resonant. It looks just like the resonator that we have on the filter. Okay? This is broad, narrow. Okay? So what I'd like you to, and you can go up and down on that one too, the more narrow you get, with the more amplitude you have, the more you are negatively impacting the sound by causing quantization and phase error. Okay? And I'm talking high quality, like you have a high quality sound. When you start doing this, you're starting to reduce the fidelity of the sound all over. If you're going to have something high like this and narrow, or low and narrow, it's for effect. It should be for effect because it's not for fidelity, that's for sure. And if you need it to get the sound to fit into your song, you got the wrong sound. You got the wrong sound because you are fundamentally changing the sound. Where might I use a lot of resonance like that? When I want this. Right? We're using that all the time. We're using sweeps. Okay? Do we care that the guitar sounds worse? No, because what we actually want the people to hear is that the effect itself. Does that make sense? Okay. Why don't you try each one of these? See if you can do a high pass, low pass, a shelf EQ, a parametric EQ. See if you can change the bandwidth or the Q to make them wider or narrower. And see if you can make the filter steeper and less steep. Okay, right there. And I will take questions. I'll go ahead and pause this. Let me just make some suggestions. I'm recording this again on EQ. The errors that I've seen. The number one error that I've seen. Whatever. If it looks like a work of art, something's really wrong. The sound is not right. You're so fundamentally altering this, trying to alter the sound that you need to find a new sound. Does that make sense? You need to find a new sound. This shouldn't ever have to happen right here. It's beautiful. It looks really cool, right? But you're just warping the sound so much. The only instrument you should ever do this to is piano because it's a god-awful instrument in the first place for mixing. So you have to like basically filter out a bunch of stuff to get it to even fit with anything. And it really, even though we identify it as a piano by the overtones, doesn't sound like what a piano would sound like in the first place. I'm being a little facetious there. But don't over EQ. Your EQ, this is what your EQ, I would suggest your EQ mainly looking like. Maybe a filter. Maybe a double filter for effect. Okay. Maybe a subtle That's not subtle. Oh. Hang on, let me just reset the factory default here. A subtle little boost like here. No more than 3 or 5 decibels. Not extremely narrow bandwidth, something like that. This would be me saying, I want a little bit more crispness on the top of the guitar. Done. Okay. I would generally lean towards boosts more than cuts. If you get into cuts, pretty soon every sound's going to sound bad, and you just keep cutting and cutting and cutting, and you got a big hole in the middle of your song where there used to be some frequencies. Because when you cut one out, all of a sudden these other frequencies are kind of hovering out above it. And the overtones and the fundamental frequencies don't have a relationship anymore because you cut one of them out. Preston, did you have a question?
I was going to say, how do you reset it?
I just went to factory, I clicked here, I went down to recall default. That'll set it back. You could option click on that's that'll reset them all. So that is probably the sort of thing that you'll see on your EQ, or maybe it's just a little hot there. Bring it down just a touch, okay? And I can actually look and I can see, there are some. You can actually see the fundamental notes moving there. You see them? You can see them moving right down. Watch them. You see them moving down there? These are all overtones. Maybe I don't want those fundamental frequencies. The other big mistake I see, we're going to go over to the drummer track. We're going to hit play. So I'm in the drummer track right now. This is the biggest mistake I see. Believe it or not, that doesn't sound good. People just boosting the heck out of the bass. If you look at your drummer track, and it looks something like this, your drums are doing pretty well. We don't have a lot of snare in this drum sound, but there's a lot of information between 50 and 100 hertz, especially around 60. This is pretty common in electronic music to have a lot right there. If you see that, please don't boost it. In fact, rarely would I suggest you ever boost anything below 100 hertz. I know, it just sounds weird, right? Because everything wants more bass in it. I'm going to show you how to get that. But it is easy to build up these bass tones very quickly and create mud in a very difficult to listen to song. In general, your EQ will kind of have a smooth fall off across here. A smooth fall off. These drums sort of have that. If we added that guitar in, it would fill up some of these spaces. We add in some bass and another accompaniment instrument. This would have a smooth, EQ would be smooth from high to low. If you have that smooth angle going down, your song is about right. Your song is about right. You don't want to go boosting 80 hertz or 60 hertz or something like that. And you will come in and you will go often to presets, like drums, and you go, refresh drums, refresh drums. Ah, and then you go, what does that mean? Why did he cut at 450 hertz with a 2 decibel reduction, but 2.9, a Q of 2.9 there, a Q of 1.8. Okay, let me go try that. What is this? This is garbage, is what this is. No. This is too much. This is too much. If I played this and turned this on and off and blind tested you, no one in here would hear it, myself included. It's not doing anything. If I did the same with this one, these speakers can't even respond in those 2 frequencies in the first place. If there's not enough bass, it's probably your speakers, because every kick drum you pick already has a ton of bass in it. Why? Because if it's a real kick drum, it's on a big drum, and they put a big drum mic in front of it, and when it hits, most of it's low frequency information. Okay, so the idea of having to boost it is not a good idea, because what will happen is you'll be taking these bass frequencies that are already there and pushing them into your song so much that it's going to override your song. Okay? When we want lots of bass in a song, we turn up the subwoofer, right? We turn up the bass in our car, we'll have plenty of bass. So the biggest mistake I've seen is lots of bass and then lots of little things like this, which here, what this is doing is making this drum track sound significantly worse for no particular reason. I'm not sure why they're cutting a very narrow band out at 11 hertz, 11K. No idea why. Okay? If you see something like this, be very aware of it. When you go on YouTube and you look up how to mix and you see a bunch of people saying, well, you have to cut the kick at 11K, be very wary of it. Remember, it's a holistic approach that we want. And I could go into here and go pick refresh drums on some other equalizer, and it would look totally different. You can pick the best drum EQ. I can pick, even right here, drum patches. Right, cleanup kick. Okay, refresh drum and cleanup kick, or cleanup's here. Let's see, hi-fi drums. Hi-fi drums. Oh, there's hi-fi drums. Okay. Now, for some reason, they're cutting everything out below 50 hertz. Refresh drums we just look at. What is I'm just trying to find a drum set. Vintage drums. Okay. It's all going to look totally different, right? If you want to go through some presets and use them, and you like the way it sounds, just use it. Do not spend a lot of time studying the intricacies of boosting a very narrow band with 2.5 decibels at 325 hertz in your drums. It doesn't mean anything. It means some guy programmer who probably didn't make it as a music engineer and is now working for Apple, programmed it in because someone said to or something, or read somewhere to do it. That makes sense? Or it sounded good on that particular loop he was using at the time, or she. Okay, so, this make sense? Questions? If it sounds like I'm getting down on EQ, I am a little bit, because I don't want you to use EQ to fix problems. I want you to not have the problems in the first place. Avoid them as much. Subtle changes or drastic things for effect. So we're going to add a stereo echo effect on our track. Now, echo I'm going to talk up much more. I think you should make lots of use of echo. It's a very powerful tool for placing your song in the third dimension. We've been talking about frequency, which a lot of times many of us will hear as higher and lower. We've been talking about pan, which is left and right. We've been talking about volume or level. What delay gives you is depth. It allows you to put things in front of other things and behind other things. It creates a sense of depth in your song. It makes a space, or it makes your song sound like it's in outer space, or in a hall, or in a small space, in a tight space, depending on. So if you go here and you put in, I'm on lead, I'm going to come here, I'm going to insert under delay, echo. And all delay-based effects are going to have some things in common. I want to show those to you really real quick. Okay. First thing is going to be the amount of it. And we often will use the term wet, dry. Okay. So in this case, we can control wet and dry separately. Sometimes it's a knob that just says wet versus dry. Okay. Sometimes it's just amount or level. Okay. This is going to be the echo amount. This is going to be the signal passing through without the echo. And if you look at the factory default, it's reducing the signal it's passing through a little bit, because by adding an echo on it, it's going to make it sound a little bit louder. Okay, so by adding these two together, we don't want the regular effect to sound quite as loud. The next thing you always have will be the rate or the speed at which the echo is going to happen. The echo might be like, hello, hello, hello. Or the echo might be, hello, hello. Goodbye, bye. Right? Or hello, hello. Very long one. Okay. So how fast the echoes are, and then the feedback is going to be how many of the echoes are. So if I say hello, 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 that's a lot of feedback. Okay, with a medium length rate. And then generally there'll be some sort of color. What that does is it's a filter that is either going to make it sound brighter or darker over time. So usually when an echo is happening off a building or trees or the canyon, when it comes back, a lot of the high frequency is being absorbed by the air and by the whatever it's bouncing off of. And so echoes will tend to get darker and darker and darker and darker as they echo more in the real world. Or you might have a song with a lot of mid-range frequencies there, and you want to hear the echo, but it's going to get muddy down there, so you want it to be just bright, artificially bright. So you can hear a little sizzle over the top of an echo. Okay? So you might take your color and move it up. So when we talk about color, we're talking low frequencies up to high frequencies. That make sense? All right. So I'm going to just set that color right in the middle by option clicking. And then I'm going to bring the wet down, and I'm going to hit play. I hear my sound. When I bring this up, I'll hear the echo. I change the rate. And it sounds closer. Smaller space. If I make it long, it'll sound like a longer space, a bigger space. Eventually, it'll sound like outer space. Okay? Hear the echo there? How did I hear the echo? I left space to hear it, right? It's much harder to hear it when it's tripping over itself. You have to be careful. Masking, right? You echo the thing right over the top of itself, we're going to mask a lot. I'm going to just make the color a little darker so it doesn't do that as much. This is the EQ. This down here, yeah, don't look at that. That's flex editing. We tried to get to that in the other class that went down in flames. Yes? Yes. How do we do that?
Would we have to make another track for it?
No. But we could. That's what we used to have to do. We wanted the echo to just be at the end here, so it's not interfering with any of this, and we just hear it in this part. What would we do? That's right, automation. Ka-ching, come in here, and I will I'll go into my echo, I'll take the wet amount, and I'll have it low at the beginning, and then I can increase that there, and it'll sound like this. And then maybe we want to do some, now there's a cool place. Maybe I want to keep it bright here, and I'll go ahead and mess around in the EQ here. I'm automating both. Wet. Whoops, the EQ is before. I'm sorry. Oh, here's something I actually want to show you guys. So if I want the EQ to affect the echo, the EQ has to be after it, right? And so I can grab that channel EQ in the middle and just drag it straight down, and now my channel EQ will be after my echo. You can see what happens now. So as this wet comes up, then I'm going to filter it a little bit. Right? Maybe I'll come back up there. Hear those echoes. Maybe not quite that much. So I can have those two working together, right? Pretty cool, right? Pretty cool. Other questions? Okay, so why don't you guys try to play around with those a little bit and try turning down the feedback? Now I've got it all automated. That's a medium-long rate with no feedback. Just does it once, right? Generally, you want to have a fairly low level. See what you come up with, and then I'll talk about some ideas around it. Talk to some ideas about delay and how you might want to use it. The slower, the more space you have in the song, the less room you've taken up with either notes or frequencies or parts, the more room you have to hear the effect, right? And we couldn't really even hear that delay effect until we got to the spot where I had nothing going in the song, right? It was kind of tripping over itself until that point. So keep that in mind. If you have a fast, in-your-face song with lots of distortion, echo is not going to be your best friend. Okay. Let me give you 4 primary uses of echo. One is, they don't give you cool names for these. One would be kind of a long echo for a lead sound. Like that. Sounds like I'm at the edge of the Grand Canyon or something like that, right? I can hear 2 or 3 feet echoes. Maybe we want it to be a little bit bigger. Maybe a little bit more feedback than that even, right? Stepping on it a little bit there, right? So that's one use. Your lead instrument sounds like it's soaring over the top of your song. Okay. Another use would be a short echo that is going to make it sound like it just has a little bit of support. Now, unfortunately, I can't tell the times here, but let me try this. With very little feedback. See that? More like it is the saxophone on the corner or something like that, right? Maybe not as much feedback. Okay, it sounds like maybe a gymnasium or kind of a building thing. And I have a higher mix of the wet to do that. Another one is a very short delay to make it sound like it's in a room or a smaller space. See that? And then finally, there is the repetitive echo where you might be doing a quarter note and repeating it like crazy so that the effect of the echo becomes the sound. We almost don't care about the notes. It's almost like an arpeggiator. Right? It's almost like an arpeggiation. So those are the kind of 4 things I've used echo for or heard the most. 1, outer space, floating around, soaring above. Long echoes, quite a bit of feedback, but the level's quite lower. The saxophone player down the street, that's 100, 160, we can't do milliseconds on this, sorry. But it's a shorter mid-range delay. Putting someone in the same room as you, just giving a little support to that sound so it sounds natural as opposed to just a dead sound, that's the shortest you can make them. And then for effect, where you have a really high feedback level, and it's almost at the same level as the original signal, and the delay itself becomes the effect, or becomes almost the sound, and it's really good for an accompaniment part. When you go through the loops, you'll hear some echoey ones like that. You can't even tell if it's playing it or if it's echoing it. Almost can't tell. Questions? Delay is your friend. Delay is your friend. Your song should have some things up front, some things far away. We, right now, don't have as many things in between. There isn't as many of the saxophones down the street sounds in the music we listen to as there were for a while. The 80s had a lot of that, short, mid-range delay links. Now we have more really long, like Adele singing like she's out in outer space, and then the drums right there in your face. Right there in your face without a lot of delay. And we're going to talk about reverb now, okay? So we're going to remove that delay plugin, and we're going to add a reverb Nverb plugin. So if we come over here, come down, I'm sorry. Where's reverb? Nverb right here. Maybe we could pick a. Why don't you pick the gated drum one? The gated drum one. Okay. Most traditionally reverbs have had the same thing. They've had the wet-dry mix, they've had the amount of delay, and then the feedback or the time that reverb lasts. Unfortunately, Logic doesn't have one of those nice simple ones in here. This is the simplest one I could find, but it fits really well in with something that we are used to, which is an envelope. Okay, so let's take a look. The first thing, wet-dry mix right here. So if I hit my guitar sound, That actually sounds a lot like one of those delays we were listening to, doesn't it? Pretty similar. Okay. Echo is this. Reverb is the same as delay. It's just got a ton of delays in it. And reverb is simulating human-made spaces where there's rooms like this where I have, when I snap my fingers, there's an echo off of that wall, this wall, this wall, the floor, the ceiling, this wall, all hitting you at different times. Okay. Whereas a single delay is just one echo, more like you're at a canyon and you've yelled across and it's bouncing back to you. Okay.
What reverb is it?
N-verb.
Oh, okay.
Picked N-verb right there. Okay. So the first thing we have is a wet-dry mix. We all know how that works now, right? Pretty comfortable with that. If we want to change when the reverb kicks in, we have to change what's called the pre-delay, and I'd like you to know that. Pre-delay, if I click on this and just drag straight up, it moves the whole reverb envelope back. Okay? If I move it back here, it'll sound like an echo. Right? Sounds almost exactly like that. If I move it closer, what is that pre-delay doing? The idea in a pre-delay is when I talk, the sound, the shortest distance from my mouth to your ear is direct, right? So my voice goes straight to Antonio there. But when I speak, my voice also goes to these walls and arrives at Antonio a few seconds later, or milliseconds later. Okay? If you guys, in fact, I'll pause this 1 second here. When I choose this pre-delay, what I'm choosing is the size of the room. Because if this room was huge, my direct sound going to Antonio's ear would be much sooner than by the time it bounced off those walls way out there and came in. And in fact, every millisecond is the equivalent of about a foot, is the idea. So 10 milliseconds means that if I'm talking to Antonio, the sound has to travel 5 feet this way, 5 feet this way to get to his ear 10 milliseconds after it got there directly. So 10 milliseconds is probably pretty close, maybe 20, about close to the size of this room. Okay? When I get up here, 100, I'm in a cathedral. It's taking a long time before that kicks in. Okay? So that's what pre-delay is. Second thing you can do is, how long does the reverb last? Well, we happen to have an envelope right here. Look at this. If I grab this arrow thing, what does that start to look like? It starts to look like something we've seen. I'm going to turn the pre-delay down to about 10. This starts to look like something we've seen before, doesn't it? Okay? So we have an attack, decay, sustain, release right here. And so if we want the reverb to happen faster, we turn the attack all the way down. I guess that lowest goes 10 milliseconds. If we want it to get quieter quicker, we have a decay. We have a sustain level. And then how fast it releases. There's one additional thing that's been added that we haven't seen before. It's called hold. How long does that sustain last? Why do we have to have that in reverb? Because unlike a synthesizer, the hold in a synthesizer, the hold was determined by when you let go of the note. You press the note. When you let go of the note, then the sustain portion stops. But with reverb, there's not a note being held. There's just a sound that came in, and that reverb's making its own sound as a sound. So we have to say how long we want it to hold. And in general, the bigger the space and the more reflective it is, the longer the reverb lasts. It's called the reverb time. So cathedrals can have like 4-second reverbs on them. 4-second reverbs. How long is that? Well, that's half a second right there. There's a second-long reverb. In fact, this won't even go up to like a cathedral. Okay? Let's listen to what a really long reverb sounds like on this guitar. Very long. Oh, it's releasing very quickly. Turn up the release there. Oh, wow, we can't get longer. I guess if you drag the release, it'll, let's see here. No, that's as long as it'll hold. For 1 second. This reverb doesn't hold that long. The reason is so that it doesn't use as much processing power in the computer. This reverb doesn't have like a long cathedral sound. Some of the other ones would. Okay. So we have that pre-delay to say when the reverb starts, and then all this attack, decay, sustain, release, and hold is about reverb time, how long the reverb lasts. It's analogous to the feedback in the echo. That make sense? Shorter percussive sounds want shorter reverbs. Longer flowy sounds want longer reverbs. reverb you can use in your song, but you probably will use it more sparingly than delay. The reason is because it has all those echoes in there. It takes up a lot more space. It leaves less room for other things. You don't want 4 or 5 different reverbs in your song. You might have 4 or 5 different delays in your songs. It's space things. Okay? You might have 1 or 2 big reverbs. Right? A lot of the things that you'll hear in mixes that sound like reverb are actually delay or echo. Last thing they have here is the filter stuff too. So I can density and spread, yeah, whatever. It changes that color. Adjust them if you like them. I can explain those more. But the main one is, are you going to high cut or low cut? And what's the frequency in between the two? So if I want my reverb to get darker right away, I would cut more of the high. If I wanted to get brighter, I'd cut more of the low. Same thing that we saw in the EQ, or the delay, sorry. Delay. Questions? Next major plugin type or effect type, distortion. What does distortion do? Ultimately, distortion takes our nice, friendly sine wave and crushes it, and it becomes a nasty square wave, which has lots of overtones on it and lots of brightness to it. Okay, that's what distortion is doing, and it cuts the amplitude. If I had a percussive sound that looked like this, the waveform looked like this in the computer, and maybe I did it again. If I distorted that, is that out of focus? It looks a little out of focus. That looks better. What distortion would do is cut off this top and cut off this bottom. Okay, so that each wave coming in here is getting crushed. Crushed, 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 crushed. The more I do it, the more each wave approaches a square wave, and the more it sounds like distortion. And eventually, if you keep doing it, it'll be white noise. It'll just be noise, because you will have crushed out the fundamental frequency as well. Well, no better place to put some distortion than a guitar, so I'm going to remove this platinum verb, and I'm going to go in here to distortion. And why don't we just go right into the distortion stereo plugin? And I have overdrive right here, but I'm going to change that to distortion for this demonstration. Open that, and because the interface in this distortion I really like. I thought the reverb one is complex, but this distortion one shows you really well what's going on. The first thing you want to do is turn on this level compensation. Because how does distortion work? You have an input and you have an output. This is just like on a guitar amplifier. You have a gain and you have a volume, or you have a gain and a master. The idea is you take this input and you drive it so hard it smashes into the amplifier and causes distortion inside there. The other way you can get distortion on a guitar amp is you crank the output so much it distorts the speaker. That was the original type, okay, of distortion. So what we're going to do is we're going to take this input, we're going to drive it into this output so heavy that the output can't replicate it and it gets capped off at the top. It can't handle any more signal. It's got to just cut it off at that point, and it's going to sound like distortion. So I'm going to make sure you have level compensation on, because if you boost that signal 50 decibels in your ear, you will hurt it. Okay? What this does is it'll say, I'm taking that 50 decibels of drive, I'm causing the distortion, but then I'm reducing it by 50 decibels on the outside. So that the overall level to the listener is the same, it just sounds more distorted. Okay? Here we go. Play it. Okay? I also on this one have a tone where I can filter out the high frequency. So if I turn it up, here's all those high tones. Okay? Questions? That couldn't be easier, could it? Should you use distortion in your song? Absolutely. It's a great way to take something that maybe it's an accompaniment part and keep it from interfering as much. This guitar might be a little in the way, so I'm going to add just a little distortion to it. In fact, this guitar already here has a little distortion on it already. Okay, might do something like that, right? Okay, I might want a lead part that's just crazy, because now when I do this, whoops, when I start filtering it, I get all those cool effects. I've added all those overtones. Look at all of them up there. Nasty. Right? Watch if I turn distortion off. Watch what happens up here. Much less, right? Distortion off. Distortion on. Distortion adds more high frequencies. It will also change the shape of the envelope, because when you do this, when you cut off these high points right here, then what it does is it boosts everything out, and these all get louder inside here. So the signal gets flatter and a more of a sustained sound. That's why lead guitar is often distorted, because it creates that sustained sound. We don't need that now because we have a synthesizer that can do it. Right? Questions? Well, then I will just move right on to the next one, modulation. Okay, so I'm going to go in. What modulation does is it takes a delayed version of the original signal, a very, very short delay, and it changes how much it's delayed. Modulates how much it's delayed using a low frequency oscillator. Okay, let's go take a look at what that means. If I were to come on here, let me go ahead and mute that channel. Oops. Got my lead here. I'm going to go and put in a delay called sample delay. Okay. And I'm not going to link left and right. And I'm going to hit play here. I'm going to delay this by just a few milliseconds. Well, if I delay it right there, can you hear how that sounds like? That kind of like in a hallway, right? Or here it's a little bit more. Yeah, the announcer. It sounds just like the announcer. Okay. If I take that around 10 milliseconds, we can't hear it. It's too short of a time for our ear to hear. It's causing some phase cancellation in the sound though. And if I take that now and I modulate that over time, I'll use automation here, and I go into the sample delay, and I take the right delay, and I change it. I don't want samples. Are they going to force me to have samples? Yeah, 10 milliseconds. And I modulate it up to 20, or we'll go 10 to 30. Listen what's happened. It's going to sound like it's changing pitch. Hear that? I'll try to go faster. That's modulation. I'm doing it very extremely in this case, okay? I'm going to take it down so it doesn't go quite as far. Can you guys hear that? That's the Doppler effect is what's happening, is by having that slight delayed version of that guitar and then speeding up and slowing down, the pitch changes slightly on it. And then it goes against the original signal and it causes some phase cancellation. And it sounds cool. It degrades your sound a fair amount. It starts to mess up because we're taking these two waveforms that are very similar to each other but not quite. And there's another one coming just after it. They're starting to cancel each other out in places. Okay? So it definitely degrades your waveform, but it sounds cool. So if we put in, if you go over back to the thing, I'm going to put in a flanger right here. Okay, I'm going to go to modulation, flanger. Most modulating plugins have the same parameters. Wet, dry mix, like we've seen. A rate, just like we saw with the echo. The intensity is how much it's going to shift. Is it going to go from 10 millisecond delay to a 60 millisecond delay, or is it going to go from a 10 millisecond delay to just a 15 millisecond delay? More subtle. And then the feedback is just the resonance, which means it'll feed itself back into itself so that there's a resonance on that change, similar to what we had on the EQ filter when we had more resonance right where the EQ cut off. Okay? So it's doing all the same things we already know. Wet, dry mix, rate, intensity, feedback. Very similar to the other plugins we've seen. Okay. If I hit play on this, hear the sweeping sound happening on there? Let me pick a maybe easy flange. There's a frequency going. This is similar to the filter modulations we've been doing. Similar. But it's a phase cancellation of the note against itself. I can make it go faster. I'm going to turn it up here. I might turn down the amount of it and the resonance. Let's flange. Flange sounds like a jet airplane. And you can just pick a preset, notch flanger, slow rate. Turn it off. Back on. This will cause your sound to wash in the background a little bit more. People start listening to the effect more than they are to the actual instrument recording. Questions on that? There are 3 types of them. They're the most prominent. There is flanger, chorus, phaser. Most of the other ones are some combination of those things. A chorus has a longer bass delay, meaning instead of around 10 milliseconds, it's up about 40, 45 milliseconds where it starts as delay, and it'll sound, see if I can find one that sounds good. A little harder to hear in this case. Let's try that one. If you want to hear chorusing and how it sounds, Come As You Are by Nirvana. I'm going to pause this before I record it so that I don't have to have ads on my video. So chorus is a kind of a wet sound. Flanging is going to be like a jet airliner, and the other one that's important is a phaser. And a phaser is going to sound like the sound going past your ear. If you take your ear like this and move your hand around, the phase cancellation is happening just within your inner ear that allow you to know where things are coming from. Phase is messing with, and it sounds like this. Sorry. Let me pick one here. We'll listen to it phase. Hear it? I'll turn it up a little bit. I'll put up a chewy phaser. Could you hear the LFO there? It's like. So phase is like your ear, flange is like the airplane, chorus is like underwater. They all do the same things. Now this phaser is not as simplified as the other ones were. You got your wet dry mix, you've got your filters, you've got your feedback for your resonance, you've got your rates. Now this one has 2 phasers in it. I don't even know how to handle that. That's too much for my brain. Okay? And then I don't even know some sort of stages or intensity over here. So speed, intensity, feedback, mix. Same as the others. Other modulation that you can do are that are useful a lot are tremolo. And tremolo will just make the sound get louder and quieter. Okay. They get a little fancy in this one. Maybe make it not smooth. It's just turning this sound on and off. That's tremolo. And then there's usually some sort of auto pan, which pans it left and right. Might be the scanner vibrato. No, this is getting fancy. The other ones they have in here are simulations of speakers that move around. So yeah, they don't have a scanner. They have a rotor cabinet. It's a simulation of a speaker spinning, which is what they use on organs a lot. Organs. Questions about modulation? So flange, phase, chorus, usually some sort of vibrato or tremolo. Feeling good? Okay. And let's go right on to the next one then. Sub-bass and enhancers. These are the ones I'm going to suggest you use instead of EQ when you want more high or more low in your song. Okay. Now, Logic versions of these are okay. I hope someday that they'll really improve them. But it's a way to create high frequency overtones without having to distort the signal and mess up your amplitude, without having to hack things off and make square waves. Okay. It actually will analyze it and recreate higher tones. Let's see what that looks like. So if I go into this lead, I'm just going to put an enhancer on it, and I think they're under specialized. Exciter, I'm sorry. They call it exciter, but it's an enhancer would be another term for it. And it's going to add harmonics or overtones automatically on top of my guitar sound. Let's see what that looks like. I'm just going to mute the drums here. I'm going to open the EQ. I'm going to put the exciter before the EQ so we can see it. Okay. Open EQ so we can watch it. The exciter up here. I'm going to make this EQ just a little smaller. Okay. I'm going to hit play. I'm going to have no harmonics on it first. See my signal there? And then I should be able to add harmonics and you should be able to see them. I'm going to get a little ridiculous. Look at all that stuff it's adding there. Now ideally, it didn't affect this down here at all. Ideally, it's not affecting that. Because instead of boosting the signal, it's adding new frequencies on top of it. It's simulating making them in the moment. Okay? In my blind test that I've done for myself extensively with this, which is hard to do because you know when you're pressing the button, I'm very convinced that this sounds much better than taking a shelf EQ and trying to increase those high frequencies. This is a better way to do it.
Sounds better?
Yes, because it doesn't affect the phase of the initial signal. You're not messing with the signal, you're just adding, you're analyzing and adding to it. It's almost like mixing in another sound on top of it. So an exciter, and then you can do it, you can have it go lower. So I'm adding frequencies all over the place there, right? Just really high ones. And listen what I can do on the drums if I do that same thing, this exciter. Add the drums back in. So I'm just going to turn the EQ so we can see it with the drums. Oh God, we still got that weird. Snare and that hi-hat coming out now. Without messing up the kick. Okay? If I want to add a lot of thwack on a kick, I can do it this way too. So if you want to fundamentally boost these high frequencies, I suggest doing that as opposed to this. And I put phase correlation meters on these and watched this, and it's like, yeah, definitely.
It went away. The screen went black.
Simultaneously, you have the same thing on the bass side. We losing signal? On the bass side thing, they call it a sub bass. If I go to this drummer channel, and instead of exciter, I'm going to add in, we're losing our signal here, sub bass stereo. This isn't, there's still their old interface. They haven't updated this one for a while. Let's see if we can see this through the equalizer as well. So I'm going to turn on that equalizer. And this does the same thing as the exciter, only it adds frequencies below. So rather than boosting the kick drum and making things sound horrible, you can add some low frequencies below. Now, unfortunately, we won't be able to hear any of this on these speakers here. Let's see what happens if I play. So if I mute this, we see the kick is hitting right about here, right? Now I should be able to below the kick. And I can add more of the wet signal. And we can't see anything. Let's see here. Oh, it's because I have it muted. Here we go. There we are. You see all those frequencies getting added below the kick there? Look at that. Now there's a good way to blow out the system. I'm just blowing out these speakers right here, okay? I just added a bunch of bass under that kick. The kick is still right about here. If I take that wet out, I can add it here. With some exciter and some sub bass, you can take your song and be like, okay? It's a great place to get yourself in trouble too and add too much. What will tend to happen is our ears tend to like having lots of high and low in a lot of the speakers we listen to, or scoop out that mid-range. It sounds impressive for a while, and then it sounds annoying, and it sucks the life out of your song. Your mid-range is where your life is in your song. Your high and low is where the size of your song is. So you can have this big, wide song with no energy. Or you can have this really energy song with no width to it. If we go back to that Nirvana Nevermind album, there's no high and low. It's where there's high. There's no bass. There's no bass in that album. They cut it all out. It's all in the middle. And it's really energetic. Kind of like Nirvana. Right? So if we want that sound, you give it lots of mid-range. Lots of mid-range. If you want that, a spacier high-low sound, then you give it more some of the sub-bass and exciter. Okay? Most of our headphones will not replicate what's going on in the sub-bass. So this is something you might want to consider doing. To avoid damaging speakers, overloading things, you may want to put a filter at the very bottom here to roll off that kick at a reasonable, maybe in here. And you see it's reducing now, right? Because I just don't want to blow anything out. I don't want to blow anything out when I've been doing that sub. I've used this sub thing on the sub and the exciter on every type of music. I did it on our jazz ensemble, and suddenly the jazz band sounded like bigger than they would have normally. I used no EQ on it, just some sub bass and some exciter. Sound good? Questions on those?